These are the worst deaths in every major sport. Not accidents that could have been avoided. Not freak incidents with obvious causes. These are deaths that happened in the middle of competition. Under lights. In front of crowds. Deaths where the athlete was doing exactly what they were trained to do. And it killed them anyway. Jack Trice, American football. On October 6, 1923, Jack Trice took the field as Iowa State's starting defensive tackle. He stood 6 feet tall and weighed 200 pounds. Early in the game he sustained an injury to his shoulder during a collision, but he kept playing. In the third quarter, Jack attempted a rolling block on an offensive play. He landed on his back. Several Minnesota players trampled over him. Their cleats tore into his abdomen and chest. The weight crushed down on his internal organs. Jack could not get up. His teammates helped him off the field. Team doctors examined him briefly on the sideline. They saw the shoulder injury but missed everything else happening inside his body. After the game, Jack was taken to a Minneapolis hospital for evaluation. Doctors cleared him to travel. They told him to rest. The team boarded the train back to Ames that evening. Jack lay on a makeshift straw mattress in a railroad car. The train rocked and swayed through the night. Nobody realized he was dying. The overnight journey was rough. Trice began having trouble breathing. When the train arrived in Ames on Sunday at 1 a.m., he was immediately taken to the campus hospital. His condition worsened throughout the day. Doctors discovered his injuries were far more severe than initially thought. His collarbone was broken. His abdomen and intestines were so severely damaged that surgery was too dangerous to attempt. Internal bleeding was spreading through his body. On Monday afternoon, October 8, 1923, around 3 p.m., Jack Trice died from internal bleeding due to severe abdominal injuries. He was the first African-American athlete at Iowa State. The university now plays in Jack Trice Stadium, the only major college stadium in the United States named after a black athlete. Lane Frost, bull riding. On July 30, 1989, Lane Frost walked through the gates at Cheyenne Frontier Days in Wyoming. He was 25 years old and one of professional rodeo's brightest stars. He had won the world championship in 1987, and people recognized him wherever he went. That afternoon, the draw assigned him a bull named Taking Care of Business. The bull had a reputation among riders. Big, strong, unpredictable. But Frost had ridden tougher bulls before. Behind the chutes, Frost prepared his equipment. He wrapped his hand in rosin. He adjusted his rope while other cowboys wished him luck. The crowd noise grew louder as his ride approached. The gate opened and Taking Care of Business exploded into the arena. The bull bucked and spun. Frost's body moved with the bull's rhythm. Riders need to last 8 seconds on the bull. The clock ticked down and the buzzer sounded. Frost had made a successful 85-point ride. He dismounted and landed on his feet in the dirt. The ride was over. The bullfighters were moving in to distract the animal. That was when something unexpected happened. Taking Care of Business turned back toward Frost. Normally, bulls run away after a dismount. But this one came back. It lowered its head and drove its horn forward. The horn struck Frost in the back with tremendous force. It penetrated his body and tore through his internal organs. The impact lifted him off his feet and threw him forward into the mud. Frost tried to stand. He made it to his knees, then collapsed. Bullfighters and medical staff rushed to him. They carried him out of the arena on a stretcher. He was still conscious. He was talking. He told them he could not breathe. An ambulance took him to Memorial Hospital in Cheyenne. Doctors worked to stabilize him, but the damage was too severe. The horn had broken several ribs and torn his pulmonary artery. Internal bleeding filled his chest cavity. Lane Frost died on the operating table less than 2 hours after the ride. He had completed the ride successfully. He had done everything right. And the bull came back. Ayrton Senna, Formula One. On May 1, 1994, Ayrton Senna sat in the cockpit of his Williams-Renault FW16 on the grid at Imola, Italy. He was widely considered the best driver in the world. 3-time Formula One world champion. 41 career wins. But the 1994 season had been difficult. The car was not competitive. He had not won a race yet that year. And the previous day, Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger had been killed during qualifying. The first driver to die at a Formula One race weekend in 12 years. The race started. Senna took the lead. On lap 7, he was approaching the Tamburello corner at approximately 190 miles per hour. It is a long, sweeping left-hand turn. Senna had taken it thousands of times. But this time the car did not turn. It went straight, off the track, across the grass, and directly into a concrete wall. The impact was catastrophic. The car decelerated from 135 miles per hour to zero in a fraction of a second. The force was over 60 times the force of gravity. The right front wheel assembly broke off and was thrown backward. A piece of the suspension penetrated Senna's helmet and entered his skull. Another piece struck him in the head. Medical personnel reached the car within seconds. Senna was unconscious, not breathing. A medical helicopter airlifted him to Maggiore Hospital in Bologna. Doctors performed emergency surgery to relieve pressure on his brain. But the damage was too severe. Ayrton Senna was pronounced dead at 6:40 p.m. local time. He was 34 years old. The race was not stopped. It continued. The crash was later determined to be caused by a steering column failure, a part that should not have broken. Did. Nodar Kumaritashvili, Luge. On February 12, 2010, Nodar Kumaritashvili was preparing for the opening ceremony of the Vancouver Winter Olympics. He was a 21-year-old luger from the country of Georgia. He had been competing internationally for 4 years. The Whistler Sliding Center track was the fastest in the world. Speeds regularly exceeded 90 miles per hour. Several athletes had crashed during training. Multiple riders had expressed concerns about the safety of the course. Kumaritashvili was on his final training run before the games officially began. He entered turn 15 at approximately 89 miles per hour. His sled lost control. It drifted high on the wall. Then it launched off the track. Kumaritashvili was thrown from the sled. His body flew through the air and struck an unpadded steel support beam at full speed. The impact was to his head and torso. Medical staff reached him within seconds. He was unconscious. CPR was started immediately. He was airlifted to Whistler Healthcare Center. Doctors worked for over an hour to resuscitate him. Nodar Kumaritashvili was pronounced dead at 5:50 p.m. local time. Less than 2 hours before the opening ceremony was scheduled to begin. An investigation determined that the crash was caused by a steering error. But it also found that the track design was flawed. The walls were too low. The exit speed from turn 15 was too high. And the steel beam he struck should have been padded. The Olympics continued. The opening ceremony went ahead. The luge competition took place. They made modifications to the track. They moved the start position lower to reduce speeds. But Kumaritashvili was already dead. Owen Hart, professional wrestling. On May 23, 1999, Owen Hart was preparing for a pay-per-view event called Over the Edge at Kemper Arena in Kansas City. He was a professional wrestler with the World Wrestling Federation, now known as WWE. He was 34 years old. Married. Father of 2. The match planned for that night involved a stunt. Hart, performing as a comedic character called the Blue Blazer, was supposed to be lowered from the rafters on a harness as part of his entrance. A quick-release mechanism would drop him onto the mat from a few feet up for comedic effect. Hart was raised to the ceiling of the arena, approximately 78 feet above the ring. He was suspended by a harness attached to a cable. The quick release was designed to be triggered by Hart pulling a cord. But something went wrong. The release mechanism activated prematurely. Before he was positioned over the ring, Hart fell 78 feet and struck the top rope chest first. The impact threw him into the ring. He landed on his back. The crowd initially thought it was part of the show. Announcers were told to continue. Medical personnel rushed to the ring. Hart was unconscious, not breathing. His chest had been crushed on impact. CPR was started immediately. An ambulance took him to Truman Medical Center. Doctors attempted to resuscitate him. Owen Hart was pronounced dead at 7:50 p.m. The cause of death was internal bleeding from blunt force trauma. The pay-per-view event continued. Matches went on. The show was not stopped. WWE later stated that Owen would have wanted the show to continue. His widow sued. She won an $18 million settlement. And WWE banned all high-altitude stunts permanently. Dale Earnhardt, NASCAR. On February 18, 2001, Dale Earnhardt was racing in the final lap of the Daytona 500. He was one of the most successful drivers in NASCAR history. 7-time Winston Cup champion. 76 career wins. Known as the Intimidator. He was 49 years old. Going into turn 4 on the final lap, Earnhardt was running third. His car was blocking for teammates Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr., who were running first and second. As the cars exited turn 4, Earnhardt's car made contact with Sterling Marlin's car. It sent Earnhardt's car up the track. Then it made contact with Ken Schrader's car. Earnhardt's car turned sharply and hit the outside wall head-on at approximately 160 miles per hour. The crash did not look that severe. Not compared to other crashes that drivers had walked away from. Earnhardt's car came to rest on the infield grass. Safety crews reached the car within seconds. Earnhardt was unconscious. His seatbelt had failed. He was not breathing. Medical personnel performed CPR at the scene. He was taken to Halifax Medical Center. Doctors attempted resuscitation. Dale Earnhardt was pronounced dead at 5:16 p.m. The cause of death was a basilar skull fracture, a specific type of head injury common in high-speed racing crashes. Earnhardt was not wearing a Hans device, a head and neck safety restraint that had been recently developed. He had refused to wear it. He said it was uncomfortable. The crash led to mandatory safety reforms in NASCAR. Hans devices became required. Safer barriers were installed at all tracks. And the sport fundamentally changed its approach to driver safety. But Earnhardt was already dead. The pattern. Jack Trice played through the pain and died on a train. Lane Frost completed the ride and the bull came back. Ayrton Senna's steering column failed at 190 miles per hour. Nodar Kumaritashvili's sled went off a track that was too fast. Owen Hart fell because a release mechanism failed. Dale Earnhardt refused to wear a safety device that would have saved his life. None of these deaths were inevitable. All of them led to changes. Jack Trice's death led to better medical protocols. Lane Frost's death led to mandatory protective vests in bull riding. Senna's death led to massive safety improvements in Formula One. Kumaritashvili's death led to track redesigns. Owen Hart's death ended high-altitude stunts in wrestling. Earnhardt's death made Hans devices mandatory. But the athletes are still dead. And the changes only came after. Never before.